god. Aura's trying to help me, and she was helping me, like, rehearse the intro and remember what it is. And what she told me to say started with, "Hi, I'm Jade, and I'm the host of Collective Mind." Because she's so used to doing hers, she remembered to change the name, but not the... Oh, man. Hi, I'm Jade, and I'm one of the protectors of Collective Mind, but that's not the role that I'm going to be focusing on for this video, because one of my other roles in the system is to be a mom. I am also here with Sidus, who is my fiance and the primary protector for Primal Pack. Hi.
Hi. Were you just testing to make sure I was here?
Yeah. I don't want to do this by myself.
Of course not.
For clarity, I don't mean that I have any kids out here in the external world. I'm talking about kids that I have in the inner world within our system. And as you might know from a couple other videos that are already up on our channel, Sid is also the dad for my kids in our inner world. Involving Sid in my family in that way was a multi-step process that involved a lot of trust on my end. Because first of all, I had to see him as safe enough to even introduce him to my kids. I will probably throughout this video refer to them as my cubs. That is what I usually call them. So if I say my cubs, I'm still talking about my kids in the inner world. But then, once I decided that he was a safe enough person to introduce my kids to, they were also involved in that process. They had to be comfortable with that and see him that way. And if any of them had not felt that way, it wouldn't have been forced on them. And then, of course, he also had to be comfortable with that. But that was less, like, my role as a protector and mom for this system and for these particular littles, and more so just, like, a consent and relationship thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I want to clarify is, I know that it's pretty common, at least from what I've seen and heard from other people, for systems to have, like, familial relationships within them because an older alter just kind of feels that way about one of the littles, that kind of thing. They just, like, take on a motherly role or something like that. And that's not what I'm talking about in this case. In this case, these were all types of splits from me or from, like, essentially previous versions of me, depending on when the split happened. Because I had some fairly recent integrations, and I historically have also split pretty frequently, so if you haven't seen my Meet the Alters video, you might not know this, but I am, like, the main trauma holder core for our system. So when I say I have split a lot historically, that's why. And in addition to splitting a lot, I've split in a lot of different ways, so these are just a couple of the ways that I've specifically split in our system. To help all of you kind of visualize things as I'm going through it, I made a little kind of chart family tree thing that I'll show you. That shows my cubs so that when I'm going through and talking about them, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Some of the normal things that you would say, like to introduce children typically as a parent, are kind of complicated in this case because of ways that systems can work. Like, for instance, if I were to talk about age, they all have different ages, like developmental ages, essentially. And most of them also age slide, which complicates that a little bit, but their age also doesn't necessarily coincide with how long they've actually existed within our system as themselves. So that also complicates things. So with that in mind, Nox, who you can see right here, is the oldest in like developmental age, but Kit, who is right above Nox, has been around the longest, by far the longest, and has changed the least in that time. One of the simpler things to introduce about them would be gender. So all of my cubs are girls except for Ember and Barry, who are both boys. I think Ember might be the only one you've actually potentially seen before on our channel. Don't think anyone else has been in a video yet.
Kitty might have.
Maybe, but I don't think so. I don't remember that.
I know there definitely hasn't been a like focused video on them, but
yeah.
I thought there was a point where they popped in for a second.
Maybe. You can also probably see from the pictures on the chart that all of my cubs are non-human, and they're mostly in the cat family one way or another. The two exceptions for that would be Kit up here, who is a black fox, and Barry, who is obviously a bear. But then I have 3 tigers and 3 cats, of like 2 black cats, and Nyx is black and gray. I have also separated this like family tree into 2 sides, of the right side being cubs who are inside of my subsystem, and the left side being cubs who are outside of my subsystem. So that's one of the ways that they kind of split differently, is when they split, sometimes they'll be inside my subsystem, sometimes they'll be out of it. So as I mentioned earlier, I am not, in this case, just talking about littles I felt a strong protective instinct over, or a strong emotional connection with, or things like that, and then decided to call them my cubs. I am talking about littles who split from me, and in a variety of ways in this case. One of the ways is kind of what I think of as just a normal split, of just, in this case, one altar splitting into 2 or more, just kind of fairly quickly, and then they're just 2 new fully formed altars, that kind of thing. That was the case with most of them. However, for some of them, I mean that as close as is possible within a system, they are biologically my children. As in, I carried them in the inner world and then gave birth to them in the inner world. Which I still view as a form of splitting. That's the way that we think about it in our system, at least. That's the closest comparison we have for it. Charlie's in my lap now. She made the mistake of coming too close to me, and I captured her. I'm not the only mom in our system, and I'm not the only mom in this way. I'm not the only altar in our system who split in that way. I also, like I mentioned earlier, there were several past sort of variations or components of me that split into these cubs at different times. So, for instance, before my most recent integration with Jade and Mama Bear had Barry. And with that integration, I still identify as Barry's mom. And if you want to know more about those integrations and those kind of components of who I am now, I would recommend watching my Meet the Altars video, where I go a lot more into that. Another clarification I want to make is that not every altar who has split from me is one of my cubs. Not even every little who has split from me is one of my cubs. Like I said multiple times already in this video, I've split a lot. Variations of me have split a lot, and not all of them see me that way. Not all of them are comfortable with me. Not all of them even really know me. There are some that I kind of just know exist, but there's a lot of amnesia between us. There are some in subsystems that I don't have access to, that kind of thing. And there are some who haven't always seen me as their mom, but have started to see me that way more recently. So, again, there's a lot of, like, nuance to it. There's a lot of different ways that it has happened in our system, and no two systems are alike, but even within one system there can be a lot of variation in how things work. This is a topic that I don't see discussed much, like online and in system spaces, so I wanted to share our experience, at least my experience, within our system, and I am curious if any of you have any experience that's similar or know anyone who does. And if you feel like sharing, feel free to leave a comment or come over to our Discord server, or both, whichever you prefer is fine with us. Our Discord server is linked in the description box below. I guess it turns out that Sid was mainly here for moral support, but I think he still added something.
I don't think I added anything.
No?
No.
I think you, like, laughed once earlier. I don't remember, though. This is probably going to end up being a very short video, but I have been filming for 50 minutes at this point.
Oh, I'm aware. It's going to be a 5-minute video.
It might be a little more than 5, but it's going to be down there, for sure.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, being a mom to littles within my system is probably pretty different from being a mom to an external world child. I imagine, because I only have experience with one of those, but something that I imagine is pretty similar is because I have so many jobs, like roles in our system that keep me pretty busy, especially busier at some times than others, like balancing that time can be hard because they're both very high priorities to me. But one of the things that I try very hard to do is pay close attention to which things specifically require me and which things just require, like, a protector of some kind. Because being a mom to my cubs specifically requires me. So thinking about it that way has helped me some to make otherwise difficult decisions about how to spend my time. Is it hard for you to be a dad from outside the system?
Yes and no. Because it's not the same as quote-unquote normal people who get to see their kids every day after school or something like that.
Yeah.
But I do get to enjoy the time that I do spend with them because it makes all of those moments more precious.
Do you think it requires trusting me more than it would otherwise?
Not really. I think it eliminates that that propensity for trust, like, will the other person leave and abandon me with the kids? Or something like that. Because I don't have that option. It's not one to worry about. I don't have to worry about them being outside and getting kidnapped because they're inside the system kind of thing.
Right.
There's other things that go with being in a system that I have to worry about, but
right.
In general, I don't have to worry about bullies picking on them in school because I will know how to handle that at the time.
Because in a weird way, I feel like I don't have to trust you quite as much, because if you turn out to be an asshole, you just don't get to see them anymore. And I would easily be able to just block them from the front until probably kicking you out,
Yeah.
So it involves a lot of trust on my part, especially at the front end, for you to spend any time with them. But at the same time, I have like a comforting subconscious knowledge that I can protect them better as a member of the same system as them than I could protect them if they were out here.
Yeah. If anything, it feels more like I have a lot less power as a dad.
Yeah.
Or not quite the same rights that a dad in the outer world would have.
Yeah.
Because I can't take them to get ice cream or take them to get a present for you when you're not around or something like that, because that's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And
I'm not really ever not around if they're out.
yeah, and especially if we were to go into public.
Right.
Like, that would almost inherently trigger you out.
Yeah.
So there's little things like that that I get to miss.
Yeah.
And there's other struggles that come with it, such as their dysphoria is pretty extreme.
Yeah. It depends which one, and it depends some on the moment. It's harder sometimes than other times. But
yeah. In general, though, it's not like I have trouble controlling them because they're inside the system or something like that. I don't need to.
Right. I almost hate to ask this way, but do you almost feel like a little more helpless than you would be otherwise? Like, if things are going on inside, or if I were to suddenly, for some reason, ban you from seeing them or something, there wouldn't really be anything you could do about it.
Correct. I don't have that option or that kind of control. It's just completely out of my hands, so I tend not to think about that, and
Yeah.
I feel more grateful for every bit of time that I get to spend with them, because it's like a silent affirmation that I'm being at least a good dad.
Yeah.
Enough to the point to where you let me keep seeing them.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I guess there's that kind of thing, but I don't mean that in the way to make you sound controlling
No.
or whatever. It's just...
That is something I've struggled with, though, being too protective with them on, like, the controlling end of that spectrum. And it has varied some depending on which form or version of myself I'm talking about and that kind of thing. Because I know a little too well the types of things that can happen in this world. And I want nothing more than to prevent any of those things from happening to them. And it sometimes feels worth it to keep them in a little bubble inside and make absolutely sure that nothing gets to get to them, nothing gets to hurt them. But that would be a form of me hurting them, which has taken me a while to accept that I'm protecting them from too many good things if I do that. Too many things that they need. But it helps some to know with pretty absolute certainty that I will be there the instant anything were to start happening to them, no matter what it is. I'm probably already there for one thing, but they wouldn't continue to be out. Even if I weren't consciously doing that, it's a very strong trigger for me to not let littles get hurt. So I'm one of the most likely to step in front of them with whatever's happening. But not everything is as scary as it used to be. So I've been doing a little better overall at letting them go with you to the grocery store and things like that if they want to.
Yeah, but you do always stick close if they're around, which is okay.
Yeah. It would be hard for me not to.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I'm nearly always close if we're in public anyway, but it's a strong trigger, that protective instinct to instantly be there if anything were to start happening to a little.
Yeah, that's just protector instincts.
Yeah. It would take a lot for me to not be there. Like, I think I might wake up out of dormancy if something were to happen.
Actually, I did think of one thing that does make it quite hard.
Yeah.
Somewhat. To quote unquote hard to be a dad.
Yeah.
And that is not knowing who's out. Not being able to tell who's immediately out is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Because I can't, like, immediately just see them and be like, oh, it's Ember. This is who I call Bud, and this one's Buddy. This is, like, I can't treat them individually until I ask, and it feels really impersonal. Or like I don't know them well enough sometimes because I can't tell always, or I don't know the answer off the top of my head and can't read it.
Yeah.
Because I at least have trouble distinguishing between littles just from your voice.
Yeah.
Unlike adults.
Yeah. Nox, at least now, sounds older. But she also doesn't front very often. And other than Nox, Barry might have the most distinct voice?
Potentially. I don't know. I don't know who has the most distinct one.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult to tell.
Is it frustrating to not, like, effectively be able to hang out with more than one family member at a time?
Sometimes, actually, yeah. At times, it is very frustrating.
Yeah.
More so for things like if one of them is feeling sad. I can't know that they're in between you and me. I just have to trust that you're close by or something like that. I can't actually tell, and I can't get that feedback physically.
Yeah.
So it can feel harder.
Yeah, there's also situations where you're trying to discuss things with more than one of us at a time, and so whoever's out just kind of relays messages from whoever else is involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
Like if Kitty and Ember were having an argument or something, and I was out, like...
That would be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I don't think that's come up yet, though. But I can't give them the same facial expressions that I would normally, because if I just had Ember by themselves, I would treat them entirely differently than if I had Ember in front of you or whatever else, because there's the personal bit of I don't want to out their feelings and force them to talk about something they're not comfortable or ready to talk about. But yeah,
that makes it hard too. It would be very difficult for one of them.
It feels like I'm not the same.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. It feels like I'm not able to treat them like individuals sometimes.
Yeah.
Just because that's part of the rough part of being in a system.
But it just occurred to me how hard it would be if one of them wanted to tell you something but wasn't comfortable telling me.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things like that make it, at the very least, complicated and different.
Yeah.
And, like, one of us telling you that everyone's there and hanging out, like, to watch a movie or to have a conversation or to cuddle or whatever, is different than sharing a couch or whatever with a bunch of kids.
I think I know what it is that I struggle with that part. I can't see the little minute things that I would see and almost nobody else does.
Yeah.
Because I don't zone in super hard to, like, a movie that we'd be watching.
Yeah.
I would be paying attention to, oh, Ember decided to wander off, or they snapped their head to the side because they heard a noise,
Yeah.
and I get to see what their fascination is, how their eyes are reacting to what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I don't get those moments, which for me feels like a great emotional disconnect, sort of. Because those are so prevalent with whenever I front. And usually whoever I deal with, even you on a case-by-case basis and stuff, like whoever's out, I can still see those little differences all the time. And that's part of why I wonder if I'm really actually a good dad, because I don't know how to function well as a dad without those. And I feel very lost in general without them.
Yeah. That's a frustrating thing for me in a different but similar way, of because some of them are in my subsystem and some of them aren't, they can't like all play together. They can't like all just hang out like that, because if I'm gonna be there, then 4 of them can hang out inside my subsystem and 4 of them can hang out outside of it. Or one of them from my subsystem can like switch with me inside and hang out with the other 4, that kind of thing. And they can be like blurry and stuff like that, but it's not the same.
It does make it stupidly complicated. Being in a system sucks at times.
Yeah. Parenting is also plenty difficult without all of the extra complications, so...
Parenting is incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
Parenting in and of itself is hard enough. Parenting from a system point is harder still, but it's also easier on some levels.
Yeah.
Because you technically have moments to get away and you don't deal with it. You're dealing with so many other things.
Yeah. I specifically also in a lot of ways have more control over their safety than I would otherwise.
Yeah. There's also a lot that I have to leave up to imagination because they're inside.
Yeah.
Like when Ember figured out how to tickle you with his tail or something like that. I can only imagine how cute and what that must look and feel like, or whenever they try to sneak off and jump on someone.
Yeah.
And I don't actually get to experience that, but you do, so I'm somewhat jealous of that, but also saddened about that because I wish I could.
Yeah.
And it makes me incredibly happy to hear it, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah, it's definitely not. And I can relate to some extent just hearing about things that happened when I wasn't there.
Yeah, like if Onyx says I got hurt when I was inside.
Right. Or even with the cubs, like if Kitty and Ember tell me about a game they were playing earlier while I was doing something else inside or fronting or whatever, it's not the same as being there and playing with them, or even just watching them play.
But they're still the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even though I wish I could see them, I will take hearing about them.
Yeah.
It's also very difficult to try and balance how protective you are over them with not being a super overprotective parent.
Yeah.
Because if a little's out and someone gives them a sideways look because they heard them talk or something like that and Collective didn't notice, or whichever little was out didn't, but I did, and I saw their gaze or heard them mutter something as they walked by.
Yeah.
Because we hear significantly more background noise than Collective does.
Yeah.
We hear way, way more. I struggle really hard to not just treat them like they just did that to a child, because from their perspective I can understand that. It doesn't look the same. It's outside of their normal understanding. So
Yeah.
they're treating it differently, and they think we're the weirdos. But I struggle a little bit not to snap on people when they do that.
I don't give them
But I do
quite
tend
as
to
much
position
benefit of the
myself
doubt
in
as you
between.
do.
I mean, I still put myself in between
Yeah.
you and them. Just because, fuck you, don't touch them.
Yeah. And also, if you're having that kind of an attitude in that situation, I don't want you to talk to them. I don't want you to make them uncomfortable and self-conscious pointlessly.
Yeah, that too.
Especially because it's common for a lot of littles in our system to already be very self-conscious, in public especially, of anything that's not, like, masking very well as what people will expect of this body.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to get weird looks, they don't want to get snide comments or whatever. They don't want to be treated like something's wrong with them.
Yeah. That is a gigantic issue for them.
Yeah.
It also sucks to try and console them at times.
Yeah.
Because I can't physically pick them up and hold them.
Yeah.
Or carry them around with me. Just let them sleep on me.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It just doesn't work, sadly.
Yeah. That frustrates them too.
Mm-hmm.
It might frustrate Ember the most. He talks about it the most.
Yeah. We try to make do with what we can, like figuring out the best cuddle positions, or helping them feel their size.
Yeah.
But it's difficult.
Yeah, but unfortunately this body can't ride your head.
Correct. And I'm also a dragon inside.
Yeah.
I can't physically wrap my wings around them, which is painful to not be able to do, to instinctually try to, and it's just not working. Because there's a gigantic disconnect between the body and me, and I don't feel like I'm being a good dad because I can't do the things that I would normally do.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's the hardest for them. Like, harder than it used to be, dysphoria-wise, when fronting, is that specific frustration of it being so obvious that their body is wrong. Because they should be able to easily fit in your lap or on your shoulder or on your head or whatever. And they don't. And that...
It causes a lot of dissonance and disconnect, especially with just...
And it's uncomfortable. It's frustrating.
When you're having an extreme emotion, like wanting comfort, and then you try to reach for something and something gets in your way, or if you're ever wearing a tight shirt that doesn't stretch very well and you go to hug someone and it just pulls and stops you, it's that immediate frustration and amplifying of feelings because of that frustration. And it's like you can't quite get the thing you need. You can touch it with just your fingertips, but you can never grab a hold of it. It's an infuriatingly, despairingly crushing feeling at the same time as wonderful enough that you're getting something. And that causes such an internal conflict. I don't know how to handle that for them, because I want to comfort them, but I know comforting them also causes some problems. But it solves more than it causes for them.
I also try to help with that from inside. One of the main ways that I do that is I, from inside, try to do what I know you would be doing if the bodies were right. Because I have wings inside, I can wrap my wings around them.
Mm-hmm.
I can easily completely surround them, they're much smaller than me. All of those things. Which does help them some to be still comforted by you, but be feeling inside what feels right with the size comparisons and all of that. And there are smaller things than that too, like all of them have fur, and so like the texture, sensory aspects of things just all feel different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We should probably wrap it up though, because we've been filming for an hour and 45 minutes. If you have any questions for me, or for Sid, I guess, feel free to ask in comments or on Discord. As always, we reserve the right to not answer any questions that we don't feel comfortable with, but you can still feel free to ask. I don't know if any of them will be in future videos. It's up to them and their comfort level. Ember almost certainly will be. He likes doing that a lot. But for the rest of them, just depends what they want to do. Other than that, what's our outro? I know it ends with thanks for watching, bye. That's not the part I'm asking though. There's links as usual in the description that you can go check out. Primarily, the Discord is the main link that you'll find down there. There will also be videos and playlists and such on the screen. We'll probably link to my Meet the Altars video because that would be helpful context for any of you who haven't seen it, or even just haven't seen it recently if you want to rewatch it. Obviously up to you. Yeah. I hope you liked it. And if you did, you can click the like button. Or not. Whatever you want. There's also a subscribe button if you want. Thanks for watching, bye!